Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Sprocket, West Kentucky, and KY Innovation. Welcome back to episode 284, even number episodes. We're looking at the news of the last few weeks to see what we can learn to better protect ourselves, our families, and our organizations in cyberspace. So, with that, let's just dig into the news. Actually, before I get started, let me just say we talked about the IC3 a couple weeks ago, and if you are a victim of a fraud, cyber fraud in particular, the IC3.gov website is a place for you to report that information to allow the FBI to investigate. This past week was a World Elder Fraud Abuse Awareness Day, and FBI had a webinar, shared some information, and there were two things regarding the report that I mentioned on here that I wanted you to know. First of all, the FBI estimates that reporting on IC3. So when I talked about all the numbers and the 8 billion or so that were lost last year, that is 1 out of 44 victims report that information. So any of those numbers that we talked about on here, add or multiply rather times 44, and that's what the real number is. So these numbers are enormous, the fraud that has taken place. Second piece they talked about was the odds of you getting your money back are pretty low, period. But if you don't report that fraud immediately, it's even worse. So you want to get it in there, you want to report it. It is confidential. The FBI will contact you, but they will not share your name, your information with anybody else. So I would encourage you to do that, just to get that ball rolling, to make sure that you're able to if you can get your money back, make sure you do that. All right. Speaking of FBI, first story I want to talk about is the FBI. The FBI takes down a massive China-based cybercrime network that has caused 1.9 billion in losses. So there's a lot of those reporting that we just talked about that is likely from this organization. They're not the only ones. This cyber criminal organization in China, it's not the only one across the globe, but in particular, this one was scamming victims, claiming they had missed packages, unpaid tolls, parking violations. Those text messages that we've all received, that is some of their tactics that they would use to convince victims to click on links. This is one of thousands of criminal networks that are operating, but I'll take every one. The unfortunate thing is law enforcement can't really be proactive. They have to have a crime to investigate, and so this one was pretty successful, and they were able to take down this organization that had been operating since 2023 and had been operating in 55 countries, or had victims in 55 countries. So anyway, kudos for them taking this organization down. One of the big things that's been going on in the news really for the last few months is Anthropic. Anthropic, they have a couple of AI models that are really good and frankly really scary. The Fable 5 version 5, Mythos version 5 are some of their newest models. They're very powerful, and people are scared of them, and they should be. And I mean, everything with AI, we need to understand its power as we start to think about using these tools. But a few weeks ago, the White House put in an executive order trying to limit how much foreign governments had access to our fantastic tools that we're developing. So Anthropic said this article is talking about that it actually took some of their models offline to comply with the new export controls, meaning that we don't want our technology to fall into the governments of other nations, particularly those nations that don't follow the rule of law like others. So, anyway, I could have picked one of a dozen articles talking about what Anthropic's doing, AI, data centers. There's so much going on right now in this space, and it's certainly something that you want to keep your eyes on. The next one, all right, look, I always share to if you're going to implement some safety procedures, you want to use industry best practices on passwords, industry best practices on how you do the authentication, how you store the information, how you do all of those things. There's industry best practices for a reason. We need to use those. In this situation, this company, I think it's a cleaning company, provide cleaning, security guards, industrial cleaning, um, had over 2,000 employees, and they stored all their passwords in a single Excel file. Now, I don't know if you know exactly how to store stuff, but surely if you're the corporate IT guy for a 2,000 person organization, you should know that storing it in an Excel file in a spreadsheet is not the way to do it. Now, here's part of this is a larger discussion than we have time for today, but part of this is understanding risk. If I am in my home and I have passwords written down on a piece of paper, is that good? No. Is that better than putting it on an Excel file? Actually, it probably is, because that Excel file is on your computer, and a bad guy can get access to your computer a lot easier than, think of a Russian hacker, than getting access physically into your house to steal that piece of paper. So we got to think about risk, and having that on your computer, even if you think you've buried it and it's hard to find, now with these AI powered tools, you can scan a system very quickly and you can find that file. What's worse is if you message that file to somebody, or send it in an email, and as the article describes, the IT department would ask you to direct message them your password if you had computer problems. Again, all of these are really bad habits and not industry practice or best practice, and don't do them. Just don't do them. Related to this, this article came out this week. There have been 124 million passwords added to the breach database. Now, the reason I bring this up is every time there is a password database that has a breach, the very first thing that you should do is to go in and change your password. If you're a victim of that organization, you should go in and change your password. Now, if that password is used on multiple sites, which if you've listened to me, you know that's a bad idea. But if it is on multiple sites, you should change that password everywhere that password is being used, because it is no longer a good password. 124,000 million passwords have been added to the password or the breach database. If you want to know if you're in that, this website that's on the screen, have I been PWNED? Have I been owned? Is what that is, computer nerd lingo. But have I been PWNED.com. If you go there, put in an email address, it'll tell you if that email address has shown up in any of the scams. Highly recommend that you do it. It'll go back for a long time. Have you been part of a of a breach? The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely you have. Whether you know it or not, it's a different discussion. But the answer is yes. Have I? Yes. Have the problem is if we're online, then we're trusting people to store their information correctly. Bad things happen. Bad things just happen. So we've got to be careful with that. Anyway, all right, I'm out of time. That's all the news we'll get to today. If you have questions, please reach out. Let me know. And I will see you next week back here on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.